Hello and welcome to another episode of the Alter Your Health podcast. This is a Medicinal Monday episode that we're recording live in our plant-based and stress-free Facebook group. I'm Dr. Benjamin Alter.
And I'm Dr. Susanna Alter, and we're both naturopathic doctors who support individuals in reversing disease and reclaiming optimal health through whole food plant-based nutrition and mind-body medicine.
So we're excited to talk about sugar and sugar cravings and what to do with them, what they mean, and really overcoming them and understanding them and conquering them, putting them in the past, in the rearview mirror. But before we do, we've got a couple of announcements. I think the first and most exciting one is our upcoming Whole Food Plant-Based Challenge.
Yes, and we asked the community to vote on what topic they wanted this challenge to be focused on, and the community picked weight release, sustainable weight release.
And you know, we always like to emphasize that weight release and weight maintenance healthfully is just a natural byproduct of health. So in this Whole Food Plant-Based Challenge, we'll of course be talking about releasing weight healthfully, but we're going to be talking about optimizing health on all levels, of course, as we always do. So registration is open for the Whole Food Plant-Based Challenge at, the link is, we'll post it. It's Whole Food Plant-Based, WFPB-challenge eat more way less. This is the Eat More Way Less challenge, and we're so excited about it.
Yes, and it starts on April 26th. It is 6 days, so that ends on May 1st. We hope to see you all there. We know many of you who are live with us right now are already registered.
Yeah.
But just as a reminder, in these live Medicinal Mondays, we encourage our live participants to speak up, say hello, ask whatever questions you would like related to today's topic of sugar cravings.
Yeah, so as we were talking just now before we went live, Dr. Susanna, you were discussing and bringing up the fact that over the last couple of years, because I think we recorded a similar episode a couple years ago, and over the last couple of years, we have witnessed a lot of people overcome their craving and addiction to quote-unquote sugar, which I'm doing quote-unquote because we need to, for sure, as we always do, separate sugar, like the white processed stuff, like the junk food, from like sugar as in the natural stuff built into all plants. But we have witnessed and experienced so regularly so many people overcoming the cravings for the junk food, for the processed stuff, and just completely not even thinking about these foods that used to grip them. So I think it's so cool. So we're going to be talking about how that happens.
Yeah, and you know what we talk about today might be a totally different mindset approach or a strategic approach than you've ever heard before. And what we're going to really talk about is human physiology, human biochemistry, what these sugar cravings mean, and how to respond to them in a way that promotes health, healing, and also promotes the resolution of these crazy sugar cravings that people have, battled with.
Yeah, so I am actually a member of a number of different plant-based Facebook groups, and I sometimes drop in and peruse and see what people are talking about. And one thing that I see so often is, oh my gosh, I've got these sugar cravings. Oh my gosh, what do I do? What's your best tips and ways of dealing with these sugar cravings? And I commented once a few months ago, I said, oh, you must be a human being. And this was not me joking at all. This was me being completely serious. You are a human being, therefore you crave quote unquote sugar. And remember, I'm putting the quote unquotes because the sugar cravings that are totally natural and a healthy part of being human is simply just craving food, because food has sugar, aka otherwise known as carbohydrates, right? Carbohydrates, we know, break down into sugar, which is the basic fuel source for each and every one of your trillion plus cells in your body. So if you are craving sugar, then that just means that your body is craving energy. That's kind of the sugar craving physiology in a nutshell. We like to talk about how cravings and symptoms and feelings are just biofeedback and messages from the body. So that's really, in a nutshell, what sugar cravings are. Right. Now, the practicality gets a little bit more nuanced and, there's a little bit more unpacking to do.
Yeah. And let's break this down a little bit because, what you just said, Dr. Ben, is that sugar cravings or carbohydrate cravings are really, can be the body's natural way of communicating to us to, hey, give us more carbohydrates, give us more sugar. So there is some inherent wisdom that the body tries to communicate to us, right? So on one hand, those cravings are completely normal and healthy. On the other hand, there can be these other cravings that are more connected to kind of actually a food addiction. Yeah. The pleasure response in the body, the dopamine pathways that can be lit up when we're used to eating foods that are really high in sugar. So we're going to talk about these two different kinds of phenomenons that can both show up as a craving for something that is sweet.
Yes, and before we do, we need to acknowledge the fact that we are told that sugar cravings are something to just deal with or just willpower your way through it. And especially for those who have a history of low carbohydrate dieting, whether it's some sort of paleo diet or keto diet or low FODMAP diet or anything like that, or low lectin diet, when we're restricting carbohydrates, if we're restricting carbohydrates, we're restricting the basic, primary fuel source for our cells. So it's just a given that if we're following that sort of diet, then we'll have sugar cravings, more so than if we eat more carbohydrates, because our body's like, okay, I'm getting carbohydrates, I don't really have sugar cravings, I'm getting the sugar that my body is craving. So and then we're told to just kind of push through and once again use our willpower and say no to the bread, say no to the potatoes, say no to the even carrots and beets and whole grains and legumes and all of these carbohydrate rich foods because carbs are bad. But once again, the body knows, the body's wisdom knows, and is always going to be communicating with sugar cravings. I want that potato. I want that apple. I want that banana. I want that bowl of rice. I want that bean. And we need to let you know and remind you that you should be listening to those cravings for authentic carbohydrate rich whole plant foods, and you should be allowing yourself to actually indulge in all of these what we call green light foods, the fruits, the vegetables, including the starchy vegetables, the intact whole grains, and the legumes.
Yes. Okay, so first big take-home message of authentic cravings, authentic sugar cravings, is to understand that your body's preferred fuel source is carbohydrates. And when we look at a whole food plant-based diet, most plants are predominant in carbohydrates. There are a few plants that are highest in fat, but most plants have, 70 to 80% carbohydrates in their makeup. Yeah. So when we're eating plant-based, we are eating naturally a carbohydrate-rich diet. That
sets us up. That in and of itself sets us up to overcome sugar cravings. That is, if we give ourselves permission to once again indulge and fill up on these carbohydrate rich foods, which by the way, they are 70 to 80% carbohydrates, whatever most plant foods. But of course they have healthy fats. Of course they have proteins, amino acids built in. And of course they have fiber and water and vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients. So it's all synergistically balancing the quote unquote potential harmful effects of high carb sugar in your blood and oxidation and free radicals, and it's not, we need to just put an end to the ideology, the belief system that sugars in their natural form are bad.
Yeah.
Right.
But I want to expand upon something that you alluded to, Dr. Benjamin. You know, a lot of times when we have individuals, I see this a lot. I'm just going to paint a picture. Someone who is really mindful of healthy eating, they've eaten whole foods, maybe not whole food plant-based, but they're really mindful of eating whole foods and keeping out junk food, and they experience a lot of sugar cravings, or maybe even individuals on a whole food plant-based diet who are still getting these ravenous sugar cravings. So when they're getting these sugar cravings, this is kind of a scenario where this is definitely the body sending an authentic message that it wants more fuel, because what is often happening in these individuals who are maybe eating a low carb kind of paleo diet, or maybe they're eating whole food plant-based, but they're simply not eating enough. They're still kind of
a little fruit fear,
still
a little
limiting the
potato
fruits.
fear, you know?
Exactly. They're not really letting themselves really eat until they're satiated with these carbohydrates. What's really happening in their muscle cells and their liver cells is that they don't have a great storage of glycogen, and glycogen is your body's way of storing fuel, storing carbohydrates as fuel to use later to keep your blood sugar regulated. And when we don't have those adequate storage levels of glycogen, when we get depleted in blood sugar and fuel, we can start getting those kind of hangry sugar cravings.
Totally.
So in this scenario, it really is the body's authentic crying out for more fuel to both store away, but also more fuel in that present moment just to provide the body with.
Yeah. So from our perspective and in our experience and what we've witnessed, overcoming sugar cravings or getting past that is as simple as allowing yourself to eat as much sugar as you'd like in its natural, complete whole food form. That's really, the magic strategy in a nutshell, which is of course not magic at all. But the point is, once we do give ourselves allow ourselves to fill up and be fueled by the best carbohydrate-rich whole plant foods that we can, then our body is simply no longer going to be craving any donuts or Oreo cookies or chocolate chip hot fudge sundaes or anything like that. We're getting the true fuel that our bodies actually want, because we all know what it feels like to have the fleeting pleasure response of eating the cookie and then having a headache. And at some point we get a real authentic taste of health, and our body just naturally wants to taste more health, and then we're so free from the grip that, once again, those processed carbohydrates, those sugary junk foods have had on us.
And I just have to pause and call out some people out there who are listening, because maybe this applies to you. If you feel like you've been doing your best to really stay consistent with whole food plant-based eating, but every now and then you just succumb. You're just overcome by these sugar cravings, or that wasn't proper grammar. You're just overwhelmed by these sugar cravings. And then, your friend has a cookie in front of you and you just can't say no because your body is just craving it, and you eat it. And then you feel bad. So listen up, because this is so important for you. In order to really support yourself in staying successful with staying consistent with this way of eating, it is essential that you fuel yourself with enough carbohydrates, because once you do, those cravings, they're going to dissolve.
Yeah.
You're going to start you're just gonna, that cookie won't have any power over you, because you are already so fueled up with the perfect fuel that your body needs.
Yeah, so that's a great point, Susanna. And so we're encouraging you to eat enough, plenty, whole carbohydrate-rich foods. But the other important piece that we just are, I feel like a broken record saying time and time again, is eating enough in general. And of course, if we're in a calorie deficit and maybe we're eating, 70-80% of our calories are coming from carbohydrates, we're eating the good carbohydrate-rich whole food plant-based diet. But if we're only getting 1,600 calories per day, day after day after day, and we actually need 2,000 or so, given depending on our activity level, then our body is just hungry. And then, of course, we're going to have cravings for sugar or meatballs or hot dogs or McDonald's French fries or whatever it looks like or smells like. We're like, I want that, because you do want that. So to avoid that, it's helpful to just have the best quality nutritional sources at hand in any given moment. Keep your cupboard stocked with the best foods. Keep your fridge stocked with the best foods. And, get your food prep down so that you aren't tempted to reach for the things that are easiest. Because to put it my way, there's nothing easier than an apple or a banana or an orange or a grapefruit or whole piece of food.
So I see we've got some questions coming in, and before we get to them, I just want to briefly talk about what this other phenomenon is that can cause sugar cravings, which is more in line with actually more of kind of a food addiction relationship.
Yeah.
And this is actually really common now that we live in a world that has so many processed foods that have literally been engineered to hook us, to get us addicted.
Yeah. People are paid big bucks to design these foods so that humans are addicted.
Yes, and they always include sugar, always include oil, and always include salt.
Right.
Even in your sugary things, there's always that combination, that magic combination. And so what's happening here is that when we get into the habit of eating these what are called hyperpalatable foods, it really lights up the reward centers in our brain, the dopamine centers, the feel good. Ooh, I want more of that. I want more of that. I'm so satisfied by this sugary cookie. And then when we start eating regular, like whole food, like an apple, it doesn't light up the brain like the cookie does. So we're not satisfied by whole foods anymore.
Yeah.
And then that kind of a craving that's driven by dopamine isn't an authentic craving at all.
Right.
And the way to get out of that kind of cycle is actually the same way to get out of the authentic sugar cravings is still to shift over, satisfy your sugar craving with the whole foods, even though in the beginning it might not be the same as that cookie. But if you stay with it long enough, your taste buds are going to change. Your brain chemistry is going to go back to normal, getting that happy pleasure response from the sweet foods that nature provided for us.
Yeah. So this process of overcoming a true food addiction, I would say kind of maybe does take a little bit of willpower and a little bit of understanding where these cravings are coming from. We like to remind people who are stuck in those kind of dopamine trap craving responses that cravings are just a thought. On that level, they're just a thought. But yes, when we give our body 7 to 10 days, as we're doing, by the way, in our whole food, plant-based, Alter Health Spring Cleanse, we're eating just real whole food. And over the course of 7 to 10 days, we have completely new taste buds. Therefore, we have a completely new experience of food. Then we start eating the maybe what we would say more savory, we put a little bit of salt on our food, or we accidentally
take a sip of our friend's soda or something.
Oh boy, haven't done that.
And then it just shocks our taste buds and system, and we're like, how could I drink that before?
Most people, what we love witnessing, back to like the reflection on what we've witnessed in the past couple of years, people going out and having Dairy Queen Blizzard and tasting the chemicals and like, this tastes unnatural. This doesn't taste good because it's unnatural. So your taste buds are so cleaned up, so sensitized, so that you actually gravitate towards natural food the way that your body was programmed and designed, and you are completely free from this pleasure trap response. And that's a good place to be. That's a place that not many people actually get to once they're hooked into the pleasure trap response. But we are all capable of freeing ourselves.
So to sum it up, like practically, really how to overcome these sugar cravings for good is to embrace the naturally sweet carbohydrate-rich plants in your diet. When you have a sugar craving, make a smoothie. Eat a potato. Even a potato will satisfy a sugar craving. You can eat dates, even though they're dried. That's okay. You can, as long as you're using whole plant foods to make something sweet, it's going to really satisfy you on a deeper level because, once again, you're giving the body the exact fuel that it's been asking for.
So we've got some great little comments, just some more testimony. It's funny, since I eat so much fruit nowadays, I don't have those like I once did, coming from a low-carb diet before where you suffered terribly.
Exactly.
And like we said, if you are following a low-carb diet of some form, you're gonna have sugar cravings. And some people are really good at like mentally doing the mental gymnastics to overcome them. Oh no, I just want my meatballs. But the body is having sugar cravings. And Amanda says it's so funny how too much fruit is seen as bad, but look at all the cookies and cakes and ice cream and soda, etc., and that's normal. Yeah, and the thing about fruits and the sugar in fruits compared to the cookies and cakes and ice cream is, of course, the fruits have carbohydrates, also proteins and fats, but the cookies and ice cream, most of these foods are actually mostly fat, or maybe 50% fat and 50% carbohydrate, which, metabolically speaking, is the perfect storm for our metabolism.
That we don't want.
The
storm that we don't want. Just to make it clear.
Yeah. And Danielle's got a good question. Can you eat too much dried fruit? Well, dried fruit is in a yellow light food because it's not natural and it's, of course, been dehydrated.
No, it's natural, but it's been dehydrated.
Well, not like natural in the sense that like picked off. Yes. So it's, of course, lower in water, a little bit lower in fiber, a little bit less nutrient dense because it's not fresh. So because of these things, and what happens when we take out the water and some of the fiber and nutrients, we create a more calorically dense product, which isn't in and of itself a bad thing, but it just means that we need to be more mindful in our consumption of dried fruits. But so to answer your question, can you eat too much dried fruit? I would say yes, some people can certainly eat too much dried fruit. Green light foods, fresh fruit, no such thing as too much fresh fruit. But once we dry it, I think that we can overdo it just because it's not natural in the sense, the way that nature provided it to us.
Yeah, but when it comes to sugar cravings, if you're between, a bunch of raisins versus something that is totally not within the whole food plant-based realm,
of course,
go for the raisins.
It's a yellow light food.
Yes.
It's a yellow light food, which we are all should be eating some amount of yellow light foods depending on our health status and goals.
And here's the thing, when you really start to clean out the body, when you're eating whole food plant-based, you become so much more attuned with your appetite and satiation signals. So, for example, if I'm just like going to town on some dried fruit, at a certain point, my body's like, yeah, that's enough.
That's enough. And quite honestly, like sometimes after a big day on my bike or something like that, I'll eat like 10 dates. I'm no joke. And but that's like such a great way to refuel the system. There's so many minerals, so many carbohydrates, which are the good ones, right?
Ben burnt 1,600 calories on his bike ride yesterday.
So
he was out there for like 5 hours.
I was like 3.
So he really needs to replenish the carbohydrates.
I did that day. So I won't be doing that tomorrow on phase 4 of the cleanse. But anyways, yes, focus on our carbohydrate-rich foods. That's the key for overcoming food cravings, specifically sugar cravings.
Yeah. Well, everyone, this has been a wonderful conversation. I'm excited this was the topic leading up to our Whole Food Plant-Based Challenge starting next Monday, a week from now, April 26th, because it is very much related to the conversation of how to release weight sustainably. A lot of people are wanting to release weight, but they're burdened by these cravings, and so really...
Like, oh, but I gotta not eat too many potatoes or bananas and stuff. So we're gonna learn how to eat more and way less, all while achieving greater health parameters on all levels.
Yes.
So that's the focus of the next Whole Food Plant-Based Challenge. Come on into the Plant-Based and Stress-Free Facebook group if you're not already there. That's where it's going to be taking place. And be sure to register at the link somewhere, alter.health/WFPB-challenge-eat-more-weigh-less.
We'll include the link below or above.
All right. So we look forward to seeing you in the group. And until next time, peace and love.
Bye for now.